mean, this is not dissimilar to the rest of the ad market, particularly the digital ad market has rebounded in the first months, quote unquote, post-pandemic. But a lot of this has to do just with pent-up demand among advertisers that's driving more dollars into programmatic digital display, among other things.
Hey gang, it's Thursday, September 9th. Audrey and listeners, welcome to the Behind the Numbers Daily, an eMarketer podcast made possible by VTEX. I'm Marcus, and today I'm joined by one of our senior analysts, it's Audrey Schomer.
Hi Marcus, nice to be here.
Hey, thanks for hanging out. So, today's fact. A father once hired a virtual hitman to kill his son's video game character. It's so good. So frustrated that his unemployed son spent all his time playing video games, a father in China hired a skilled player to kill off his son's character.
Wow.
So good. It didn't work though, as even when his son stopped playing, he continued to show no interest in getting a job. How do you find a virtual bounty hunter? Like, that seems like way more effort than just changing the locks.
I'd probably start on Craigslist, but I don't know if I feel like that's probably a little bit too old school.
I think this
for
is
anyone
so
who
good.
could actually offer that skill.
I wonder if the son realized that his dad had put out a hit. Was this you? Did you hire this guy to kill my character? Yeah. Amazing. Anyway, today's real topic.
Great fact.
Takeaways from publishers' Q2 earnings. BuzzFeed, Dotdash, New York Times, The Wall Street Journal. 4 major digital media publishers that face similar challenges differ in the strategies they have employed to navigate them, writes Adweek media reporter Mark Stenberg. He notes that whereas the Times and the Journal have invested heavily in their subscription products, BuzzFeed has doubled down on its path to profitability by advertising against an ever-growing audience, and Dotdash has seen success through programmatic advertising, affiliate marketing, and product licensing, less concerned about capturing first-party data than its competitors. These publishers all recently reported earnings, BuzzFeed, Dotdash, New York Times, and The Journal, and Mr. Stenberg identified 4 major themes from them, Audrey, that we're going to go through in turn and get your thoughts on. So the first, digital subscription growth is slowing. The New York Times and the Wall Street Journal both gained digital subscribers in Q2, but those gains had decelerated. The New York Times added just over 140,000 new digital subscribers in Q2, reaching nearly 8 million total paid print and digital subscribers. Most of them, 7 million, pay for its digital products. That's its lowest net additions since 2018. And the Wall Street Journal added nearly 100,000, bringing its total digital subscriber count to 2.7 million. Audrey, your thoughts on digital subscription growth slowing and why this may be the case?
Yeah, I mean, it's worth noting that these are just subscription numbers for the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, which are, some of the upper echelon or upper tier of publishers that have propped up really strong subscription, like reader revenue strategies. And at the same time, it's a bit hard to know what could be driving this decelerating growth on subscriptions. But part of me now wonders if in the first half of the year, it's related to ongoing subscription fatigue, possibly that the market is reaching saturation in some ways for people who would be willing to pay for news, particularly related to, and some of this might be a little unproven, but trust is cratering among some audiences in mainstream media news sources. Mm-hmm. And in general, I'm wondering if some people might just feel less pressured to read news every day after the Trump presidency. Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned people's willingness to want to pay to read the news. A big question, notes Edmund Lee of the New York Times, was how can the New York Times convert its 100 million registered readers who consume their free newsletters into paying readers? So it's got a big audience there, but that are not paying for the content. The Times revenue grew 24% in Q2 year on year. Subscription dollars were up 16%. Ad spending, however, was up 66% as marketers returned to pre-pandemic spending levels, the article noted. Online revenue at the Times, specifically advertising and subscriptions, jumped over 40% online revenue to $260 million. The New York Times is anticipating a good Q3 dollars-wise and expects to reach 8.5 million digital subscribers by year end. The second point, Audrey, that was made here, and second takeaway for publishers, was publishers' digital ad revenue is back, apparently. BuzzFeed's Q1 ad revenue was up 23% year on year. The Times Q2 digital ad revenue jumped 80%, 80, and the Wall Street Journal saw ad revenue climb 45% year on year. Your thoughts on publishers' digital ad revenue bouncing back?
Yep. I mean, this is not dissimilar to the rest of the ad market. Particularly the digital ad market has rebounded in the first months, quote unquote, post-pandemic, even though some would argue that we're still very much in the pandemic. But a lot of this has to do just with pent-up demand among advertisers that's driving more dollars into programmatic digital display, among other things. And then there's also a sort of related trend in advertisers who may have been preparing for a post-third-party cookie world, at least earlier in this year when we still thought that Chrome was going to deprecate cookies, developing more strong direct relationships with publishers who have, large amounts of first-party data that, given their limited access to third-party data to find audiences.
Mm-hmm. For the New York Times, they said that their digital ad revenue, because we're comparing it to Q2 of last year, these numbers I just mentioned, BuzzFeed's 23 for Q1, Times is 80%, and the Wall Street Journal's 45% year-on-year growth for digital ad revenue. We're comparing these to a very depressed Q2. However, the New York Times digital ad revenue still increased 22% when compared to Q2 2019. So interesting comparison, taking it back 2 years as opposed to just the last year. The third takeaway, Audrey, M&A. Helping build audience and capturing first-party data quickly. For example, that's given in the article by Mr. Stenberg, points to BuzzFeed acquiring Huffington Post last year, recently saying it would buy Complex Media as part of its SPAC merger. The Times also, he notes, has $1 billion on hand, and as Mr. Stenberg of Adweek was noting, it has actively shopped for potential targets, including The Athletic. Your thoughts on M&A publisher activity?
Yeah, I mean, it's been ramping up, and not just this year, but last year, just the consolidation push among publishers. And in general, M&A activity is always related to gaining scale for media companies. But when you're facing threats from digital ad giants and post third-party cookie or just, post IDFA worlds, increased scale really helps you as a publisher to appeal more to advertisers who will be looking for more scaled audience reach post third-party cookies. So as a publisher, if you can build up data assets across a bunch of different publishers, either logged in user data or non-authenticated data signals that you would be able to then offer to advertisers, that's something that's going to help you compete.
Mm-hmm. The fourth trend here is non-ad, non-subscription revenues keep growing. Commerce in particular, Mr. Stenberg notes, has proven especially lucrative for companies like BuzzFeed, whose social listening strategies allow it to track consumer interest, then develop products that satisfy it. Said Q1 2021, BuzzFeed increased its commerce revenue by over $6 million, or nearly 80%, and it predicts that by 2024, commerce, that line item, will comprise over 30% of its overall revenue. As for BuzzFeed, it says likewise, licensed products and affiliate revenue has been a major source of revenue generation for Dotdash, whose brands like home and lifestyle title Spruce lend themselves well to commercial partnerships. Affiliate links alone make up between 30 to 40% of its ad revenue. Audrey, your thoughts here on non-ad, non-subscription revenues continuing to grow for publishers?
I mean, this is a really interesting area, and actually was the topic, at least commerce was the topic of one of the reports that I published earlier this year, Publishers in Commerce, specifically focused on affiliate fees that publishers have made through the partnerships channel or the affiliate channel. So for publishers, obviously they're diversifying revenues through things like events, podcasts, of course. But in general, commerce has kind of been the fastest growing and among the bigger strategies that they've invested in. And so this is happening alongside advertising revenue growth. So for many publishers that are doing affiliate partnerships, They see this as a form of service journalism. And so that's serving a real audience interest and a consumer need for information about products that they might be interested in. And so it's generally speaking more of a mid-funnel marketing strategy, but it's driving users down the funnel to the point of conversion. So that's really where this has a lot of legs as, in relationship with any advertising revenue that you may have as a publisher.
Mm-hmm. That report that Audrey published back in April, Publishers and Commerce 2021, Content Publishers Drive Evolution in the Affiliate Channel. That is on Pro on eMarketer.com. If you're a Pro subscriber, check that out. It's time now for the Halftime Report, where we summarize the key takeaway or takeaways from a lead story in a matter of seconds. Audrey, what do you think are the most important things to remember from the first half of this show?
Digital ad revenue is rebounding, including at publishers, and diversification strategies are continuing.
All right, that's all we've got time for the lead story. Time now for In Other News, of course. First, quick word from our sponsor, VTEX. Everyone is talking about digital transformation, but what does it mean in real life? Digital Insider is a new podcast series about the digitization of retail, where business leaders, academics, and thinkers discuss how businesses are transforming and give their perspectives, practical advice, thought process, and lessons learned. Go to digitalinsider.com to learn more, or listen to it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, folks, we are back today in other news. Print and digital news ads significantly outperforming others. Does targeting get too much credit? And Nielsen announces plans to cut ties with third-party cookies. Story 1. A study by Think News Brands found ads placed in both print and digital news media significantly outperformed others in an unprompted recall test per media post, writes Insider Intelligence analyst Dan Konstantinovich. He notes that ads in print news media outperformed those on Facebook by up to 4 times, and ads in digital news media outperformed 6-second YouTube ads by nearly twice as much. Dan writes that, quote, print ad spend is in undeniable decline, but the higher levels of recall means they will never truly fade away, close quote. Audrey, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's important to realize here that this is a study about ad recall as a measure of ad performance. So basically saying an ad that you see in print or on a digital publisher site, you're more likely to remember unprompted afterwards. And they said that that was regardless of the ad type. But I do think that it might be tough. They didn't talk too much about how they made these comparisons, but it would be tough to make an apples to apples comparison between ad formats and the media themselves of ads that would run in print versus on Facebook. Mm-hmm. And so, the other thing that I would mention is that as a marketer, how you're going to evaluate what performs well or what performs better as a media channel or an ad format is going to depend, of course, on what your objective is as a marketer. So a performance marketer is not very likely to be looking at print ads in general. But I will say that it's great to have some data that supports why publisher content, is better on advertising than some of the digital ad giant strategies.
Yep. Media Science CEO Dwayne Varon, who helped with the study, explains the higher return on news media ads is because it requires higher levels of attention to engage with news content. The article also noting that just under $10 billion will be spent on print ads this year. That falls to less than $7 billion in 4 years' time, so 10 to 7. Still a lot of money, but accounting for less than 2% of US total media ad spending. Story 2. Targeting gets too much credit and creative too little. That's according to an NCS study of what factors drove sales impact for 500 CPG campaigns using Nielsen media exposure and Catalina sales impact data, taking all of that and then comparing the results to what over 300 marketing and agency people thought in an advertiser perception survey. The research found marketers and media agency people gave targeting 2.5 times more credit than it deserves for ad effectiveness. People thought targeting was responsible for 22% of ad impact, but the study found only 9% of sales lift from ads can be attributed to targeting. It also found that folks greatly undercredited creative, giving it nearly 3 times less credit than it deserved for ad success. Audrey, your takeaways.
Yeah, I mean, advertisers have gotten really used to having very precise targeting very easily. But actually still most would probably say that good creative is absolutely essential regardless of how good your targeting strategy is. But the problem is that there's no rules for what makes an ad or messaging resonate with a given audience at a particular moment. It's tougher to prove that an ad performed worse just because it had bad creative, which is often why advertisers are running A/B tests on campaigns that use different creative iterations, and then they're subbing out creative that doesn't work as well. But it's an art and it's a science, and creative is definitely an important differentiating factor.
Yep. Jack Neff of Ad Age says, quote, "If there's a bright spot, it's that targeting is getting harder and more expensive anyway. The impending loss of third-party cookies from Google Chrome will make targeting harder to pull off," close quote. Story 3. At the start of August, Nielsen announced its plans to cut ties with third-party cookies. Insider Intelligence principal analyst Jeremy Goldman writes that, number 1, Nielsen will employ identifiers and client-provided first-party data, including hashed email addresses to measure authenticated traffic. It will also work with Unified ID 2.0, the Trade Desk's cookie alternative. Number 2, for unauthenticated traffic, Nielsen will leverage a combination of contextual data, machine learning, and Google's federated learning of cohorts flock groups. Audrey, your thoughts on how Nielsen and others have reacted thus far to Google delaying the deprecation of third-party cookies?
Yeah, so, Nielsen's measurement solutions haven't historically been cookie dependent or IDFA dependent, but as it's needed to grow its digital measurement products, it's needed to use new future-proofed methods across different screens and platforms where people are consuming content. So, a lot of what Nielsen's doing with this digital measurement solution is leveraging the first-party data that it plans to gather from publishers, including walled garden publishers, and these other data sources that they expect to live on post third-party identifier.
And that is all we have time for. Audrey, thank you so much for hanging out today.
Thanks, Marcus. I had a great time.
Of course, yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you to Victoria, who edits the show. Thanks to everyone listening in. We'll see you guys tomorrow, hopefully, for the Behind the Numbers weekly listen, an eMarketer podcast made possible by VTEX. I'd much rather track down the father and have a chat with him. That would be a way better episode, Audrey. I think if we talk to him.
Oh, very sorry.
No. We've got not because
that I'm not him.
No, not that you're not him.
Oh, you mean bad. If it was all of us?
If we could talk exactly, if the two of us could talk about this.
Agreed.
As opposed to no offense, publishers.
Yeah.
But that's the best thing ever.
So, how did you do it?
Yeah. Why? Why did you go into the trouble? Oh, what a maniac! So good.